Now, you were a member of the Electoral Reform Committee, and that committee I'm referring to was the one set up by the late President Umaru Yar'Adua,
yes,
who was the first president in this country to admit that the process that brought him forth was flawed and he wanted to correct it. And that committee was set up, it did its work under, I believe, Justice Uwais, and it submitted its report. There were certain key points in it. I remember when I spoke to you in 2006, at that time I asked this same question about the Oputa panel report. Now I'm asking about that Electoral Reform Committee report, because it seems as if a lot of work gets done, but then it then gets lost in the shuffle.
You know, it's very interesting you speak of Yar'Adua. And I use him as an example. I'd never met the man in my life. The only thing that happened was I spoke to him once when I was in Katsina, but I didn't see him.
At that time, he was governor.
Yes, and that was because somebody I knew, a man from Katsina who met me. I just came in the evening, and he said, "Have I gone to greet the governor?" I said, "I don't know the governor." And he said, he knows you, but I will tell him that you were in Katsina. I said, I take God beg you. I'm not, because I have mass at 6 o'clock in the morning and I will leave immediately after mass. I have to get back to, to Kaduna. Now, when he was president-elect, I was shocked when I came to deliver a lecture to the PDP at their convention. And Dr. Modibo, who became minister of the FCT, said to me, look, the president-elect said that he would like to see you, that he's sorry he wasn't able to come for your lecture, but he would like to see you. I said myself, I don't know him. He said, no, he said, so, okay, so I went. And I was shocked. I thought it would be like 5 minutes. We ended up almost an hour and something. But he struck me. One of the things was, we sat down, he chatted, he's read my article, blah. But one thing he said to me, he said, look, I would like to do something about the Niger Delta. And I've been told that you are pretty knowledgeable. So can you share your thoughts with me? I was struck. And I said to him, sir, whoever told you that grossly exaggerated. I'm not an expert on the Niger Delta. I'm interested, and I can share with you the little I know. Now, the rest is in a book I'm writing. But I'm just saying, a president, any leader, governor, whatever, you have to have a third ear. And first of all, admit the things you don't know. Because if you don't have enough intellectual curiosity, okay, it will be impossible. You may be doing all the best you want to do. And this is why, for example, I always said, and I go back to this current administration and its fight against corruption. I keep saying to myself, could you have embarked on a fight against corruption without identifying this disease? It was not enough to declare that you're going to wage a war. You can buy all the most wonderful weapons in waging a war, but it didn't cross my mind that the issues had been thought through. 2 or 3 years later, people looked at me and said, you've been vindicated. But I'm insisting that we need to introduce a sense of intellectual curiosity. This is why, so when you talk about Oputa panel, when you talk about Justice Uwais' report, everything we need to build a democracy is already there.
Yes, because again, now you mention it, I also remember that you were in the conference.
I was secretary of the political reform. I mean, you know what they say. I mean, he had done this, seen this. I've seen a lot. This country has been gracious to me. And it's been my greatest university. But it also helps me to focus on the fact that even Boko Haram, whatever it is, we shouldn't be where we are now, because a lot of things can be done. But the tragedy in our situation is that average person comes to power, wants to be surrounded by people who pray like him, or talk like him, or eat like him, or drink like him. So you surround yourself. Again, maybe there is a sense in all this, but it is that every leader is vulnerable. But if you decide to provide some concrete around yourself based on people who are of your party or who think like you, then what you are going to have is you just have one window to look at a very complex and complicated society like Nigeria. So for me, I mean, I feel very sad that almost every question that is still nagging this country, answers have been found. Not necessarily even in these initiatives. There's very little that still remains to be done. The result, of course, is that many people now feel so, if you ask me to serve on a committee now, I'll have to sit down and think whether that is worth my, my energy. So this is the situation, and it is this lack of cohesion that is responsible for where we are. Because a lot of diagnosis has been done on a range of issues and a range of areas. The only person, in fairness to him, and again I say it rather controversially, is President Obasanjo. Because when he set up a Oputa panel, when we did the work we did in Ogoni land, the very fact that he had the sense to ask me to go back to Ogoni land and seek reconciliation between Shell and Ogoni. It was a continuation of the work that we had done. So, and that for me, even if you didn't have a report, and I don't, people always say, they've not released the report. It's not a question of releasing report. It is that a president has to have a range of information. But again, you have to have that intellectual reflex. And what I see in governance in Nigeria is that people are very much preoccupied with office holding. Okay, they are not interested in the power that comes from ideas. And you have an environment where people have become rather hostile to new ideas. And this is what happens when you bring yourself and surround yourself with people who look like you, think like you, pray like you, and see the world in the in the way you see it. You end up inheriting enemies, inheriting prejudices. And they tell you, don't talk to Ladi, or don't talk to Bishop Kukah, or don't do this and don't do that. So this is why I'm saying we still are far away from building a democracy, because if you go back and look at the quality and caliber of Americans that signed, for example, the Articles of Independence, about 59 of them, only 2 of them ever became president. But if you look at the profiles, even the profile of an average American president, people don't go to school now. Even if you haven't gone to school, you surround yourself with people who have gone to school and understand how society works. Where in this Boko Haram thing, for me, the bullets and the guns are the least of our worry. The real people that should be on the table helping us with Boko Haram are psychologists. Because you must ask yourself, what is it that has brought us to this? Is bad politics quite all right? But it is a question of what are the causative factors. But we've turned it into a military operation. We will keep going round and round and round in cycles until the next battle comes.